If you are a Halo Pro, then I hope you watch this video. And if you're not a Halo Pro, get out of here, you filthy casual.
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man.
Just kidding. This video is rated E for everyone, okay? Just like my Twitter timeline. So the pros are GAing weapons in Halo Esports, and I'm late to the topic. This has been happening for a bit. It tends to be the source of controversy, arguments in the Halo community. There's been a lot of that, especially recently. So we're just going to tackle this from the ground up. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant. So what's a GA? GA stands for Gentleman's Agreement. It's an informal agreement between pros to not do or use something in their esport. In Halo's case, there are 4 weapons that pros are now refusing to pick up.
No shotties, which includes the Heatwave. So no Bulldog or Heatwave, and no assault rifle.
So these weapons, they just sit on the wall racks during tournament play. They don't get touched at all. Though technically, this is not an official HCS rule, so you could pick up the shotgun. And I've seen the Reddit posts about it. Like, it's the Halo World Championship Grand Finals Game 7, 49-49 on Street Slayer. You are optic formal, obviously. On the other side of P Street is Stellar, and he's shirtless, and he's flexing. And then right between you on the vending machine, the Bulldog shotgun and $250,000 on the line. What do you do? Wait, is this my fantasy? But, while it might win you that tournament, it will lose you your reputation. Pros won't want to scrim with you anymore. You will taint your Halo Esports legacy. So, unless you're planning to move to Call of Duty after the World Championship, then don't pick up the shotgun. Let me just go ahead and say, I don't like GAs. I don't think they're good for any esport. Like, from the outside, it just looks like the pros are flipping off the devs, or that the devs aren't listening. It also trickles down into rank play. Like, should I pick up the weapon or not? You get those elitist gamers who shame you for it. Like, you pick up the Bulldog, you're trash, bro. The casual fans, they're upset. People who haven't played a Halo game in over a decade, they're dropping hot takes like, this is why Halo is dead. Please don't listen. 343, they'll gut it like the Mangler. The Mangler was the first GA. The entire competitive community thought the weapon was just too powerful, so they stopped using it. 343, in an effort to keep the gun in the playlist, they decided to nerf it across the board by bringing it from a 1-shot beatdown to a 2-shot beatdown, effectively killing what made it fun and social, and it was still OP and competitive. So it spent a year in purgatory where, like, nobody picked it up before they finally buffed it back to a 1-shot beatdown, and you could use it in social. Moral of the story is that nerfing every weapon to make it work competitively is not the best strategy for your social players. Some weapons are just inherently not skillful by design. They're more fun and creative, and that's okay. Halo is so much more than a competitive game, which makes this whole GA discussion such a tricky balancing act, especially in today's world. Halo is a multifaceted experience. Our community has evolved in every little area that makes this franchise special, and we all want different things. We've got the pros. They just want the competitive side of the game to be as skillful as possible. They just want their own playlist where they can choose the settings they think are best. They don't want to bother anybody else, just like we did back in the day with MLG and Bungie. At the time, esports was this totally new foreign concept built from the passion of the gaming community. Bungie, they didn't care for it. They were just trying to make a fun video game. They took a hands-off approach. They gave the MLG team full control of the tournament settings and the MLG playlist. They adjusted the movement speed in the game. They took all the equipment out of Halo 3. They reorganized the weapons and the spawn timers, made the most competitive settings possible. And guess what? Halo is thriving. And then you got the casual fans. They just want Halo to be as fun and social as possible. They're not worried about the balance of every single weapon or sweaty skill-based matchmaking. They want wacky weapons. They want to play as space dinosaurs. They want creative, diverse gameplay experiences, chaos, make friends, have a good time, no alcohol required, just like, bet you can't guess, the Bungie days. Halo 3 was an innovator in the social gaming landscape. Nobody was on Twitter. I didn't get a cell phone until I was 16. You get on the game, live population statistics, friends list in your face. Find the game in 10 seconds. Pre-game lobby. Everybody's mic is on. They're saying shit that would get you canceled. You play the game, proximity chat, teabagging. We're having a good time. We're making memories. Afterwards, post-game lobby. We're still talking shit. I level up on one of 2 entirely unique ranking systems that all my friends can see, along with public career statistics, KD ratio, my spot on the leaderboard while I wait for a new game that I choose the map of on a veto system before I play 4-player split screen with my buddies from down the street.
Are you okay, bro? How the fuck?
And then we got the spectators, people who watch the tournaments and keep up with the state of Halo online. This can be both competitive and social players, longtime fans, just general gamers, potential sponsors, fans of other esports who are curious to know what Halo's all about and want to see the best in the world on the main stage. They want skill and big exciting plays, but they also like diverse weapons and items, vibrant maps and creative gameplay, unpredictable chaos, but also suspenseful, edge-of-your-seat moments, tension, drama, high stakes, trash talk, bottomless mimosas, Megan Fox in her prime, Pelicans. The weight of all these expectations sits on top of 343. And what does 343 want? They want that money and the Benjamins. Nah. I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. But nah, that's more Microsoft, right? Microsoft sits on 343 too. I think what 343 wants is to make their own Halo experience that both old and new fans can enjoy, while somehow pleasing everybody at the same time in this modern, hyper-specialized yet convoluted technological world that we live in. Esports today has ballooned into its own industry to the point where it's a marketing opportunity and a revenue stream for gaming companies. Any worthwhile PvP game is going to have esports. It's just how it is now. So 343 has to put some development resources there. But then they want their game to be accessible. So they got to try to standardize all the settings across the board and then somehow put up a product on the main stage that best showcases their game to the masses in the way they want. Meanwhile, social media has exploded, and people today are now more connected and yet somehow more isolated than ever before. Like, any random person can now drop a hot take on the internet or a
Hawk to and spit on that thing, you get me?
and suddenly become relevant to millions of people. The social constructs in our society have quickly evolved to accommodate this, and the more unfiltered the internet gets, the more censored and restrictive our gaming experience becomes. And it comes from a good intention place, but it also means no more pre- and post-game lobbies, no more proximity chat, no more in-game leaderboard statistics. Anything that could lead to harassment and toxicity, it's got to go. Instead, we're buffing the in-game reporting. Video games are also becoming more expensive and more challenging to make today than ever before, and Halo is not a big fish anymore. We're finding Nemo out here. We're surrounded by 1,000 other comparable options that I can access at the push of a button. And everything is free to play and hyper streamlined with a few key game modes and then released in beta and not finished for a year, except of course the shop, because microtransactions and subscriptions is now a primary source of revenue. And I'm not saying this to excuse 343 on the current state of the game, because mistakes have definitely been made. I guess I'm just saying it sucks. This whole situation just sucks for everybody. So who do we hate then, right? Because we got to hate somebody. Do we hate the pros who want their strict competitive settings? They're taking the attention of 343 away from the social players. Do we hate the elitist social players who shame people for being good at video games? Do we hate 343 for stumbling out the gate with an unfinished Halo game on an inconsistent vision on a scrambled game engine with a $500 million budget, supposedly? Do we hate Microsoft leadership? Did they push 343 to cut development corners and hire contract workers and get the game out early? Or this Hawk Tua girl, how is she suddenly famous now? Or what if we just stop hating? Hate is not the way, bro. I guess I'm just tired of all the hate and the hate baiting posts I'm seeing on social media, like that teabagging one recently. Like, somebody thought they got banned for teabagging and they didn't, but everybody jumped on it like as an excuse to hate Halo. It's just like, I love Halo, man. As flawed as this franchise is, I want to see it succeed in every way possible. So what do we do, right? Like, obviously, if you can't take the heat, you can get out the kitchen. A lot of people have left Halo. They've moved on, lived on their life. And if you're still around and you still love Halo, then I feel for you. First off, embrace yourself, because it's probably going to keep getting worse before it gets better. Be upset, be critical. That's okay. But if you do want to support, try to also be constructive. Offer solutions if you can. Try to be patient and considerate of the fact that we got a lot of people here with very conflicting opinions over 2 decades of franchise history. At least that's the mindset I'm using as a framework for the 20-minute breakdown we got coming up. This is a long one. We're breaking down all 4 of these GA'd weapons one at a time. I'm going to share why the pros made the decision and then assess each weapon on skill and entertainment value, because the spectator experience matters. And then I'll offer solutions to 343 on how to improve the competitive settings in a way that least impacts the casual players. I have timestamped everything in the play bar for your convenience. Lucid has a good discussion video on this topic as well. I'll both be echoing and disagreeing with him in this video. So let's hawk to it, if you know what I mean. A lot of overthinking, by the way, goes into these videos, if you can't tell. If you like the content, don't forget to sub. I'd appreciate it. I'm done joking. I'm gonna hop in a box now. Let's talk weapons. Okay, so first up, the Bulldog. It spawns on 2 ranked maps, on Empyrean and Streets. It spawns in the center, but on the perimeter of both these maps. So you do have to fight for it, but it's not directly in the open. It's got 1 clip and 7 shots. Only 1 player can hold it. If it runs out of ammo, it has a 1-minute respawn timer. If it drops to the floor with ammo, it's got a 10-second despawn timer before the 1 minute respawn starts. Is it skillful? The pro perspective would be no, not at all. But I will say it has some risk reward. Obviously, you can't use it at long range. So it does require some awareness and discipline to make sure that you have it ready in the best range to use it. Because often you'll find yourself in situations where the target's a little bit too far and you've taken it out too early, or you have your bandit out and you're in close range and you want to pull it up, but that time that it takes to pull it out when the target's already there is time where you could be punished or you could end up trading. If you miss the shot, and you could be punished. It does have a pretty quick rate of fire, and it shoots auto. Like, if I hold the trigger down, it just shoots. But if you have it ready in the optimal situation to use it, then it is pretty easy to get kills with. You've got a reticle the size of a rocket launcher. Even if you hit partial shots, it's at least a 3-shot kill. If you're accurate, it's a 2-shot kill. And if you have the element of surprise, it's a 1-shot beatdown. Instant kill. And this is the first issue that pros have with it. It promotes corner camping with very little room for counterplay, especially depending on the map and the game type. Like, think Streets, Oddball, for example. Streets is a very small 3-lane map with tight perimeters and a lot of corridors to camp within. If you have an oddball setup, then your opponent has no choice but to push up on the map and come to you, which is the perfect opportunity for somebody to camp in a corner and get a very easy, unskillful kill. Now, of course, pros are aware of this tactic, so they check their corners carefully and they push in pairs so they can counter this if it comes up. But then there's another more important issue, and this is how the weapon is used offensively when one team is in advantage state, because while controlling the sandbox is very important, what's arguably more important than Halo is map and spawn control. And what pro teams have that most people don't have is incredible teamwork, timing, and an intimate understanding of spawns and really cracked movement. That means lots of curb sliding and jiggle peeking. And especially on a small map like Streets, if you've got good teamwork, timing, spawn awareness, and then curb sliding and peek shotting, with a shotgun, you get what's called a snowball. And this is definitely an issue in Slayer. One team will get 1 or 2 kills, creating an advantage state. They'll then use their numbers and the shotgun to collapse on the remaining 2 players. The players farthest from the collapse will then curb slide very fast to the other side of the map and attack the new spawners, keeping the enemy staggered on split spawns, and all of a sudden 10 kills go by. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking, Shyway, bro, the curb slide is the problem then. If it wasn't for the curb slide, the shotty wouldn't be overpowered. And yes, the curb slide does make the game faster, and it does give teams an opportunity to snowball their advantage. But I know from my own personal experience that curb sliding is definitely not free. There's some risk reward with this technique. It takes a little bit of skill to pull off. When you do use it, you can't shoot in the moment that you're sliding. And also, you're throwing yourself away from your team in some cases and directly at the enemy. So if you don't have good timing, you're literally throwing your life away into a 2v1. If you move too fast, you also block spawns as well. So there's a careful balancing act, because you could end up flipping that spawn you were hoping to collapse on somewhere else, right? So you have to have really good timing and understanding to use this effectively. In my opinion, the bigger issue movement-wise is the peak shot. The strafe acceleration in Halo Infinite, just the sheer speed that you go from 0 to 100 with your strafe in this game. I've seen a lot of people talk about this on Twitter, some crazy strafing as well. The issue with strafe acceleration and what that does balance-wise is it gives a lot of power to the player for not much risk or effort associated. Like, all I'm doing is just moving my left stick in the wall here, right? So if I have a shotgun and I'm just peak shotting and I have instant strafe acceleration, I expose basically none of my body for like a fraction of a second and do max damage around the corner. So basically we have a weapon that's not skillful to use in close quarters, and then we have pro players that are so aware and so fast that they can consistently force close quarters engagements, and then we have peak shotting that allows them to do max damage while taking none in return. And then what you get is you get an unskillful weapon, this shotgun, that is running the game. That is basically the focal point of Slayer. And I think an unskillful weapon should never run the game, because I think fundamentally what makes competitive Halo so unique, so special, is that even if you have the advantage, 90% of the time you got to earn that kill. If your opponent is just outright killing you, then they're either using a weapon or tactic that is skillful, or it is very scarce on the map. Otherwise, there has to be some room for counterplay, some time for your opponent to do something about it. The way the shoddy currently works in competitive, it's not skillful, and there's not a lot of room for counterplay. That's why it's GA'd. So I understand why pros aren't picking it up. That doesn't mean I think GAing it is a good idea. I think as a spectator, I would rather see that diversity in the sandbox than just see the Bulldog sit on the vending machine. I don't think it needs any sort of rebalance or retuning either. I think even if you were to take some aim assist off it, the shotgun is fundamentally just an easier weapon to use in close quarters. That's just how it is. And it's in a pretty good spot balance-wise for all the other game modes, for social play, etc. So why hurt the weapon? Is it exciting? I think it's pretty straightforward. Like, what you see is what you get. It's just a shotgun. It could lead to some entertaining multi-kills, but other than that, it's not like creative. And while I don't think there's any real issue with this weapon in ranked matchmaking, it's been around since day one. I think it's time for a change. I would recommend to 343 that we switch it with something else. I'm thinking the Sentinel Beam. The Sentinel Beam did recently get an update. It's got no more headshot modifier. It's got no damage drop off at range. It does consistent damage regardless of range, regardless of where you hit the player, but it does more base damage on the body than it did pre-patch. So the base rate of kill is faster, but it's also slower than it would have been if you're getting all headshots pre-patch as well. So it's like buffed and nerfed at the same time. It also looks sick, in my opinion. It like incinerates the guy when you kill him with it. It sounds cool and like sci-fi as well. I like the reload mechanic on it also. It just brings so much more to the sandbox from a spectator point of view than just a traditional shotgun. So I would bring this back instead. I'd say give it 2 clips. I think Lucid said give it 1. I don't know. I'm thinking like 2 clips, so you got like, you know, a good amount of kill potential with it. But what do you think? What would you put instead of the shotty? Would you reorganize the whole sandbox on streets? For Empyrean, I actually would just take the shotgun outright and take the plasma pistol that spawns here and put it where the shotgun spawns. I think you can get to the point with the sandbox where you've got like too much diversity. The pit has so much. It's got rockets, it's got OS, it's got 2 snipers, it's got sidekicks, it has 2 ARs, which we'll talk about ARs, but there's just a lot of diversity here already. And by having the plasma pistol, I think that will become more the focal point versus having a shotgun and a plasma pistol to try to delete the OS or like other weapons on the map. There's a repulse as well. I just think it's redundant and unnecessary on the pit. With all that said, next up we got the AR. The AR spawns on 4 competitive maps. It spawns on Streets, Live Fire, Interference, and Empyrean. 2 of them spawn on the pit or Empyrean. It spawns in the relatively safe, easily accessible perimeter of these maps, so you don't have to fight over it. You can just go out of your way just a little bit to grab it. Once you have it, it's got 4 clips. When it runs out of ammo, it's a 30-second respawn timer, not 1 minute. And if it drops to the floor with ammo, it's a 10-second despawn timer before the 30-second respawn timer starts. Only 1 player can hold it. I just learned this now, by the way. If you have a line of sight on the weapon while it's sitting on the floor, the despawn timer actually won't start. The only way to get that 10-second despawn timer, as far as I can tell, is to turn away from it and like walk away, or I think it's like within a certain radius. Even if I'm like looking at it through the wall within that radius, I think that resets the despawn timer. So kind of an interesting mechanic, and I believe this applies to the shotty or any weapon that's on the floor to ensure that it stays in play if somebody has like a line of sight on it. Is it skillful? Once again, pro perspective, no, it's not. It's your traditional Halo spray gun, right? Like, it's never been designed to be competitive or skillful in any way, and I think that's okay. I think especially with the recent update, it's nerfed and buffed at the same time. It's less precise. It blooms faster, basically, but the maximum bloom is smaller than it was pre-patch. It used to bloom out wider and the bullets would spread farther. Now those bullets stay contained within like the reticle, which really encourages you to just hold the trigger down and spray this thing like an automatic weapon versus like feathering it and trying to land like long-range precision shots with it. Kind of solidifying its role in the sandbox and making it its own unique thing. So like, I like it the way it's designed. It just has a really fast time to kill for not a lot of difficulty, right? Like, it has a TTK that's comparable to any of the other powerful weapons in the sandbox for less difficulty associated. And considering what we've said about the state of pro play right now, like how fast the game is, how efficient pros are with teamwork and forcing close quarters engagements, especially on this map, you can see how devastating a weapon like this might be. It's also very easily accessible. You don't fight for it. It literally spawns like in PD right beside your spawn. It again comes down to that balancing act of like, are we getting kills that are too easy to earn? And is this dominating too much of competitive play while not being skillful? If it's not skillful, it should be scarce, is kind of the rule. Does the weapon bring any sort of entertainment value to competitive play for spectators by being there? Not really, right? Like, once again, it's like the shotty. It's very straightforward. What you see is what you get. You hold the trigger down. It's an automatic weapon. If anything, like from a nostalgia factor, you'd be like, oh shit, it's the AR, you know, if you're watching it on screen. But apart from that, like, it's not... You know, it's never been associated with competitive play in any special way. I don't think we're going to miss it if it's gone, personally. Maybe keep it on Interference, because I don't feel like it's running the game in Interference. I don't feel like it's having a significant impact on the larger maps. But on a map like Streets, on Live Fire, having 2 of them on Empyrean just seems unnecessary. I think the sidekick might be a good alternative to the AR on Streets. Just put that in the same spot instead. It is powerful, but at least it's more skillful. and you have to earn the kill. Especially with the recent update, it feels less spammy. It's got lower aim assist than the AR. You just have to work harder in general to use it. On Livefire, we already have a sidekick on A plat, but what we don't have is a BR. There's no BR on Livefire, so I'm thinking on top tower, instead of the AR, just put a BR there. Like, I'd like to see more and more of the BR in competitive play, at least 1 or 2 of them on these maps, especially now with the Bandit rate of fire nerf. The BR is more powerful, it's more useful in the sandbox, and it's an iconic Halo weapon. For Empyrean, we already have a sidekick, we already have 2 BRs, we already have 2 commandos. I'm thinking just take the ARs off, move the sidekick out of the base, and put it where the AR is now instead. So you have to move up farther on the map to earn the sidekick, using it the same type of environment that you would have been using the AR. Just makes more sense to me. The map doesn't need as many weapons as it has. Now for the Disruptor, it spawns on 3 maps on Streets, Solitude, and Argyle. Just like the AR, it is easily accessible. It's got 4 clips. It spawns 30 seconds after use. It also recently got a buff. It got updated. It has damage over time effect now, which takes effect after 4 shots, and I believe you've got a lot of time to hit that 4th shot. As long as it happens before his shields regen, the Super Combine will still take effect. With 8 shots, you get a second Super Combine, which then kills the player. This weapon also has a chain reaction feature where I can shoot like any utility pad or weapon pad or the center point of like a stronghold or a hill in King of the Hill, even a stray bandit on the floor. Like, the range on that, I think this is about the maximum range, but this is pretty crazy. It's a 10-shot kill. You can't hit a Super Combine off this feature. The creative aspect of this weapon is what makes it stand out in the sandbox. I mean, look at this. I hit the left side and the right side. I get a different, different target, I guess. But is it skillful? No. Once again, right? Like, it's not really... It doesn't take much to shoot the player with this thing. It's got a decent amount of aim assist. Headshots don't matter with this gun. It does the exact same damage whether I shoot him in the toe or in the head. It's the Super Combine that makes this powerful, right? Like, now that I can shoot him 4 times, I can switch to my Bandit and he's a 2-shot kill following that Super Combine. I can also leave the fight after I shoot him 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm out. He's still taking damage, and his shields won't regen until the Super Combine finishes, and then afterwards he gets the shield regen. So it's the combination of, like, being able to eject myself from that situation, and also him being weak and unable to fight for an extra, like, length of time. That said, I actually don't agree with the decision to GA this weapon just yet, because while it is easy to use, it's got a pretty long optimal time to kill. And that kind of hurts its ability to win engagements in 1v1s. Like, oftentimes, I feel like you just end up trading with the guy who's using the Disruptor. So, while it's, like, versatile and a 4-shot Super Combine could be useful if you back down from the fight and, that guy's shields take longer to come back. So, in a team shot, it's got potential. It doesn't feel like something that's going to swing a game in one team's favor or the other. It's just not insanely powerful. And I think from a spectator perspective, it just offers something a little bit more creative and interesting than like an AR or a shotgun. I've got multiple ways to use it. I can shoot a stronghold and get the chain reaction. Just kind of creates a dialogue for the casters and for the people watching it that might be exciting. I don't know. I will say it looks like a troll weapon, though. It looks like a joke, right? Like, something about this gun does kind of look like a joke when I'm using it, like I'm trying to sandbag my opponents. But even Lucid himself said that this weapon felt just like a throw-in for the GAs.
I will say I brought it up in the GAs, like maybe the Disruptor needs to get GA'd, and then it kind of just like, oh yeah, do we want to just GA the Disruptor? And everyone just kind of agreed and just threw it in. So Disruptor maybe got thrown into the GA a little too early. I just think I can see it getting abused in the future.
So while the weapon isn't very challenging, I just get the sense that even the pros aren't convinced that this thing is overpowered yet. So, I mean, maybe LAN is a different story. It just doesn't feel like good justification to immediately remove it from competitive play. But the pros are obviously going to do what they want to do. If it was up to me, I would just leave it the way it is. Don't update anything. Out of all the GAs, this one is the toughest to place. The Heatwave spawns on 2 maps, on Interference and Aquarius. It's got 1 clip with 8 shots, the same respawn timer as the Bulldog, 1 minute. And the same issues that pros have with it as well. The peak shot capability, it's a 2-shot kill with accuracy. It's a 1-shot beatdown around a corner. You can use it to snowball a game. But it's also got so much more that makes it unique and creative in comparison to the Bulldog. Like, instead of an ADS, you've got horizontal and vertical fire. Horizontal for close range, vertical, which gives you the option for long range. It shoots a slow-moving projectile that bounces around the environment, meaning you could bank shot with it. It looks pretty sick, too. Like, it's shooting, like, laser beams that incinerate the player. The reload mechanic is pretty dope, that we won't see that in competitive play. Is it skillful? The interesting thing about this weapon is, yes, it can be skillful, and it also can be easy at the same time, depending on how you use it, right? Like getting a peek shot for max damage around a corner in close range can be very easy. Landing, 2 vertical shots, especially if you're a pro, you see the accuracy these guys have. They land like, nasty vertical shots at close to even like a mid-range at sometimes and make it look easy. 343 actually recently updated this weapon as well. They reduced the aim assist at long range, so landing those long range kind of like snipes with the Heatwave is less likely to happen and more challenging. The fact that it's capable of longer ranges kind of incentivizes that you use it at those longer ranges where it's more challenging to land shots with it. So there's like a risk-reward decision-making and like discipline aspect I find behind, do you want to burn the ammo in those longer range opportunities, or are you specifically going to try to save this weapon for the close quarters moments where you know it's most effective? Also, because it's shooting a projectile, even if you are accurate with it at a long range, your opponent might have the opportunity to dodge it with their strafe. Like, it's not always completely free. And then you've got the decision-making process of like, do I want the horizontal, easier, I guess, aim in close quarters, but then I don't hit all the damage? Or am I just strictly sticking to vertical? Of course, pros are so great at optimizing the best uses for this weapon and forcing those close quarters engagements so that the kills become as easy as possible. But even if you do use it in close quarters, then you've got the bank shot functionality, which runs the risk of you accidentally hitting yourself. If you get clipped by one of these, and I see it happen with pros all the time, that could lead to your early death as well. So there's a little bit of a risk associated with this too. So yes, it's a shotgun. You can peek shot with it. It's easier to use. It's more available than a sniper, and pros are effective at forcing close quarters with it, but there's so many more layers to it that make it interesting, that make it exciting. And I mean, when you think about the spectator experience, is this weapon hype? I would argue that it is. If any Halo pros happen to be watching this, Lucid, Renegade, there was a moment at HCS Atlanta, Optic versus FaZe on this map, where Renegade pulls out the Heatwave and he hits this play. For me, this was one of the best moments in that game. Like, here's my reaction to that moment.
Lucid somehow getting out through front, knows exactly where the nade's going to go. He avoids it. Renegade living here too. Oh my God, everybody's moving perfect. Oh, Renegade! And he puts Damn on the dead zone. Dead zone thankfully gets the cleanup, but Renegade, my God, bro.
Like, as a spectator, you can't tell me that that play wasn't kind of hype. Like, if Renegade doesn't have a Heatwave there, he dies. There's no way he gets both of those kills. Like, Formal either kills him out on the beam or he dies afterwards, right? So it's just the playmaking that's possible, and the fact that it's actually entertaining and satisfying to witness just makes me disagree with the decision to GA this weapon, at least on interference. Like, I feel like you guys are kind of doing your esport a little bit of a disservice just not having that type of playmaking possible in a tournament for spectators. It's like, I understand where you're coming from, and maybe this is a good message to 343 where some changes need to be made. It's just like, it's like workers going on strike, Like, you send a message to the company, but then sort of deny a service from the consumer, if that makes sense. But I think if we were to change it, make this a tier 3 power weapon and maybe spawn it top mid, so we're fighting over the Heatwave and it spawns less frequently. It's more of like an actual power weapon to work for on the map versus something that spawns like every minute after use, or we swapped the Heatwave with a skewer. Lucid brought this up as well. The skewer is kind of slept on right now. It's kind of like a Halo Infinite railgun. Like, it's a one-shot kill, but it's got a slow reload. It shoots a projectile also, so there's some difficulty behind landing the shot. It's got no aim assist and no scope, just a little bit in scope. And I've seen some sick plays with it back when we had Catalyst. Dead Zone, I think, specifically would pop off with this weapon. So there's like a skill and a hype component to this that I think would make it a good replacement for the Heatwave. I would spawn this top mid, take the thrust, put it somewhere else like yellow corner or maybe on nest, and this is where the railgun spawned back in Halo 5. So it's kind of like accomplishing filling the gap that the railgun did, I guess, in Halo 5. And I think that about covers it. The Heatwave GA on Aquarius, I think that's okay. The map is so fast-paced, so close quarters that it kind of like Onslaught in Halo 3. It just works as bandit only. I didn't even mention the fact that the bandit rate of fire nerf is the reason for the GA in the first place, right? So it's not that 343 isn't listening or isn't trying to listen, because they are making some careful changes directly from player feedback, despite how long, it takes for the process. It just seems like their finger isn't quite on the pulse just yet, though, because they don't see the butterfly effect that comes from making that change, right? Pros have been talking about the shotguns as an issue for a while. If you make the bandit weaker, the shotguns are now stronger. Anyway, this video has been a huge, massive undertaking. If you made it this far, Thank you. You're a soldier for sticking with me through this whole thing. This video, as usual, started as something small and then ballooned into something way bigger than it ever should have been. But I hope you enjoyed it. Curious to hear your thoughts on the whole GA situation. Right on time for SLC. We got a big tournament this weekend. I will be watch partying the event all weekend on Twitch. Come join me for the show. This thing's going to be hype, all right? We always go crazy for Halo tournaments. Shout out to my Patreon subscribers for the continued support. I appreciate it. We got a lot more coming on Patreon and on this channel, especially now that this video is done. It's grind time. We got work to do. But until then, I'll see you at the watch party or one of my many other YouTube videos right here. This is the way.